Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers Podcast. I'm Jody Grunwald. This week, my guest is Michele Russo, President and CEO of Young Audiences, New Jersey and Eastern Pennsylvania. Under Michele's leadership, the organization has embraced a comprehensive diversity, equity, inclusion, and access plan called Arts United, touching every aspect of programming, operations, and field leadership. During the COVID pandemic, Michele served on Governor Murphy's Arts and Culture Recovery Working Group and continues to play an important role as a committee member of ArtPrideNJ. Currently, Michele serves on the board of the New Jersey Center for Nonprofits and Trenton Circus Squad. Listen in to hear more about Michele, what the performing arts provides to so many, and how Young Audiences continues to come up with unique performing arts programming to bring into the schools every day. Please subscribe to the Today's the Day Changemakers YouTube channel. Download the podcast from most streaming sites. Don't forget to like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day, Live It. Also, to learn more about Today is the Day's overall programming, International Annual Forum, the upcoming Changemakers Connective, business coaching and consulting, go to todayisthedayliveit.com. The views expressed by all Today's the Day Changemakers podcast guests are their own. Their appearance on the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast does not imply any endorsement of them or any entity that they represent. Thank you and have a fabulous week, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers Podcast. I am Jody Grunwald, and as I say every single week, I get to interview the changemakers, the inspirers, and those who are disrupting the status quo within their communities and beyond in the best way possible. And today I have Michele Russo with me. Hi, Michele.
Hi, Jody. How are you?
I am great. I'm so glad we could finally do this. Thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to read a little bit from your bio, then we're going to get into a fun conversation and learn more about Young Audiences. So Michele Russo is Young Audiences, New Jersey and Eastern Pennsylvania's president and CEO, holding this role since 2015. Under her leadership, the organization has embraced a comprehensive diversity, equity, inclusion, and access plan, Arts United, touching every aspect of programming, operations, and field leadership. Michele has co-chaired the Young Audience National Teaching Artist Credential Project and has served on the Young Audience National Board Committees. And during the COVID pandemic, Michele served on Governor Murphy's Arts and Culture Recovery Working Group and continues to play an important role as a committee member of Art Pride New Jersey. We love Art Pride New Jersey, and we had Megan on as well. Michele came to Young Audiences from the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation, where she managed the biennial. All right, good. I did good. Geraldine R. Dodge Poetry Festival and the Poetry in the Schools program from 2011 to 2015. And prior to her time at the Dodge Foundation, she served as a senior education associate at Young Audiences for 10 years, collaborating and managing long-term arts education initiatives in preschool, elementary, and middle schools. And there's more, and it goes on. And also you worked for the Trenton Circus Squad. You were on the board for the Trenton Circus Squad as well. So they're in another amazing and incredible organization, and you serve on the board of the New Jersey Center for Nonprofits. So, wow, Michele, you've been a little busy.
I'm a little busy, but all fun.
all fun and all arts related, and we'll get into that in a minute. But let's tell I always like to tell the audience a little bit more about the person. So, tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what kind of child you were when you were younger.
I am 100% New Jersey. I was actually born in Brooklyn, but my entire life was in New Jersey. My parents had literally just moved from the city into New Jersey when my mom was basically about to give birth to me. So I grew up in South Brunswick, south of New Brunswick, New Jersey, and have stayed in New Jersey my entire life. All of my work and my college I went to the College of New Jersey, which was Trenton State College at the time. And I'm one of four siblings, and we had a very wonderful school experience. The elementary school that I went to was actually one of the first open classrooms back in the 70s. Open classrooms was this concept that they were trying out, which they don't do anymore. But what that meant is you could sort of hear what was happening in the other classrooms. And I remember there was a teacher, Mr. Kowalski, who always danced with his students. Folk dances. I was never in his class, but it was always there. And the entire school was very arts rich. We had a dance program. Our phys ed teacher, was one of the first phys ed teachers in New Jersey to do dance in her physical education class. So I had a lot of arts experiences growing up, ballet, took piano lessons, never loved either of those things, but my parents wanted me to experience all of that. And so through lots of twists and turns, I wound up, doing what I do now, sort of being behind the scenes on getting the arts into schools for children.
Wow, that's a great, yeah, I didn't know about the open classroom plan. That's totally interesting too. And for those teachers to do those things early on with those types of classes is wonderful. So did you ever take any classes growing up, extracurriculars that were related to arts?
I did. I went through ballet class and, performed when I was, little kid. And then piano lessons. I also played the flute until about high school. And then it just became a little bit more serious than I was interested in. But in high school, I did some visual arts classes. I kind of wanted to be an artist, but I was also so practical. And my parents were very practical, sort of, assumed that there wasn't a career in the arts, so again, a few twists and turns to get back into the arts, doing what I do. But I always maintained some connection with the arts, I wrote a lot when I was younger, wrote poetry, journaled extensively, and still, sort of dabble in the arts myself. I would never call myself an artist, just someone who's like, can I take a pottery class here? Can I take a sewing class there? Can I go to poetry readings here or go to theater? Like, I'm always trying to experience the arts.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Grew up with a dad in opera, going to his classes and listening, and I thought it was boring at first, but then I learned that now I'm glad I went because I used a lot of what I heard there in the work we're doing now. So it's very interesting.
Your dad was in opera.
Mm-hmm. He was an opera singer. Yeah. I wished he could have done more, but he couldn't afford lessons when he was a kid. So we know how that story plays out. So what happened right after school? What was like your first real job in the world? And I'll also say, what did you go to school for?
I went to school for English, and I had a French minor, extremely practical. And, but I loved it. And initially I will say I thought I was going to be a teacher. So I started college thinking I was going to go into education, and then just really didn't find that in the classroom, that wasn't me. I didn't feel like it wasn't, being in a public school setting was not really, I just didn't come alive in that setting, so I moved away from that. And when I got out of school, I did like pretty corporate type work. I worked in a couple of different businesses. I was actually at Merrill Lynch for a few years, doing budgeting. Don't even ask me how that, but then I had like a real life change where unfortunately my mother passed away when I was about 25, but it really woke me up. And it really, it's terrible, but really woke me up to look at the rest of my life and how I wanted to spend my time. And, and I shifted gears completely. And at that point, I started to work for a private school in a preschool setting. I was working with toddlers and very young children. And my favorite thing with them was to do the arts and to see how they would explore materials and how playful they were and how they weren't thinking about making something in particular. They were just exploring and in the moment. And I knew that I wanted to be behind the scenes, making sure that students would have those kinds of arts experiences where they could just be creative, explore, be free, and really just have that in their lives. So that led me to eventually to young audiences.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. We have a lot in common, by the way, just saying the Brooklyn piece, I played the flute in school, and also, losing your mom, flipping that switch to kind of change your direction. And losing my dad did the same thing for me. I was older, but one of the things I say here always, and whenever I go out and speak, is that it doesn't have to take a tragedy to have us wake up, but yet many times it does take that.
Right.
So thank you for sharing that. And I want to just make sure that that message gets out there. It doesn't have to take that in order to launch us into doing the things we want to do.
Right.
So let's talk about young audiences, because I know this is a big year for young audiences too, right? They're celebrating a big anniversary, a birthday.
Yep, we are in our 50th anniversary year. So this organization has been around. I'm a little older than the organization, but I hit my 50th, and the organization is hitting its 50th from, and when it started, it had a very small scale of wanting to get classical music into classrooms. That was the goal, was to have classical musicians go into schools, because there was an understanding that young people in schools were not experiencing classical music. And we're part of a national network of young audiences organizations. And the earliest affiliate started in the 50s. So we're sort of a little bit later in the, in the chronology of young audiences. But our organization grew from a very small, sort of scrappy, volunteer-led organization to what we are now, which is an organization that brings arts programs to schools all over New Jersey and Eastern Pennsylvania. I'm so sorry. Every school day. We're working in upwards of 400 schools a year in a good year. Either doing performances, where we still do a significant number of assembly performances, because we know that students will not have those live arts experiences any other way, and that we can, or that also that we can build community and improve the learning that's happening in schools, and bring cultures that students aren't exposed to into the school through the arts, through those performances. And then there are many other pieces of the work that we do, but the next sort of chunk of it is artist in residence work, where our artists are working over time with students to make art together and present something and share something. And our work is in every arts discipline at this point. We're no longer just in the classical music field. We're doing visual arts, performing, theater, dance, art forms that are representative of cultures around the world, and artists who are from cultures around the world. So our sort of like the growth of the organization over these 50 years has gone from this one narrow sort of focus to really embracing all that the arts can do in a school.
That's a passion, and so you're in the classroom doing the work with the kids and the captive audience, and the Plutter Kids, obviously another arts organization that I run. We're there after school. So and the kids, there's these kids, and I say it so much, but I want to hear it from you. What does the arts, if you had, sharing this, and we're going to talk about how difficult it can be to be funded being in this, sector, but what does the arts, in your words, do for these children?
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I was thinking about that metaphor of like windows and windows and mirrors. You know that metaphor? So the window is gives you an opportunity to look out from your purview and see what there is in the world, and see culture that you would not necessarily know, see art forms, and to be inspired by the arts, and learn in ways that you wouldn't learn through the arts. And that can happen in so many different ways. I mean, there's research about students experiencing performance together, and that their brains are, and adults too, I mean, just humans, experiencing performance together and having a stronger sense of community just by being in the room, experiencing the arts. This is something we as adults know, because we go to concerts and we get like, we know this, but it's also happening for students. So imagine, what that can bring to a school community when you have a vibrant, exciting, really energizing arts experience with these professional artists. All of our artists are professionals, and they are there to connect with students. So, these kinds of experiences can really make the school a better place for students to be. And then there's also the mirror of how is my culture reflected back in my school? who do I see in my school that looks like me or is like me or has values like me? And how do I engage in my community? And we know we're in New Jersey, one of the most diverse areas of the country. And, for our school communities to be able to reflect back the students that are in the room, the teachers that are in the room, and to show affirmation and value of their culture, of their community, of their art forms that come from different places around the world. It's so important because so many experiences for children is that they aren't recognized necessarily. They come into a public school setting or whatever school setting. I'm not just saying it's all public schools, but they may not have any note that their sort of culture and their values are sort of reflected in the classroom.
Right.
So that's one thing that our artists can do if that is not represented in the school community, that we can bring these art forms and these artists into the room and engage with students in a way that, like, if I'm not the kind of learner who's going to understand math concepts through the typical ways that they are taught, if I'm shown visual artists who are using math as they're making their art, and I have that opportunity myself, suddenly my creativity is unlocked. And I'm also able to understand these concepts, which are, so important.
No, yes, I shouldn't say no. Yes, 100%. Music and the arts, it's a language, it levels the playing field, I feel like, for the kids out there, right? I mean, you have your shyer kids who may not feel like they want to showcase it out, and do performances and be the soloist, but they don't mind being in the chorus, and it makes them feel like they're part of something. And, we've seen that firsthand. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
PAM 10 is a leader in IT enterprise solutions and staffing. They are driven to transform their clients' business performances. They do this every day by providing their clients with the best services and products like BizLego, an online community platform, and Colear, a unique learning management system. They also transform the lives of women and children through their associated nonprofits, SheTech, which supports women in and joining the technology field, and Softkin, support organization for kids in need. PAM 10, technology for social good. Go to pam10.com for more information.
Let's switch for a minute and talk about the fact that as a nonprofit organization, one of the most important things is to be funded. You can't do the programming without the funding. It's the truth, and it's just the way it is. But we both know, being in the arts, that it is not the most well-funded part of the nonprofit world, because it's hard to explain, right? We're not feeding the hungry. We're not housing the poor. And I had to learn that the hard way too, that it's people don't necessarily understand the impact. So what has been your way of sharing with funders that, the importance of the arts, and how do we get through better?
Yeah, I think it's it's ever evolving and ever changing. I do think there are many individuals that totally get it, like you and I. We know there are people out there that are supporting our organizations, that have supported our organizations or other arts organizations, that just get it. They understand it's valuable. They don't need data. They just say, go ahead and do it. Let me help you.
Yeah.
And we are, and I'm sure you are too, just so grateful for those folks who've just come to the table every opportunity and are generous with us and share their resources. So, there is that. I think that the piece that's an additional piece that we sort of grapple with is the education system, which we work in, which goes through its own trends and its own phases in terms of what they are pushing forward in education. So, 15 years ago, there was a huge push for STEM and STEAM, and that still exists. It hasn't gone away, but it is not at the forefront anymore. And there are movements more recently. I mean, right now, everybody is talking about learning loss and challenges that students are having because of their loss of learning during the pandemic. So they're looking at skill building and sort of like, getting back into focusing on language arts and math, not that folks weren't focusing on it, but a heavier focus to hopefully get students back up to grade level. So we are in a position where we try to always be flexible with what the school priorities are and align with them. And because we work with like literally the most creative people on the planet, artists and teaching artists, they make these connections all the time, you know? So we have had artist programs that address nutrition education, that address science and things like environmental awareness, recycling, you know, climate change, those kinds of concepts, so that we work closely with our artists to sort of go with the ebbs and flows and align with the priorities in the school. And for our ability to share that story with the folks who are supporting our organization, really shows that we're responsive to the teachers, we're responsive to the students' needs, we're responsive to what the schools need, and we're working in these really creative ways. It doesn't always work, like, you know, the money is not always there, but we are consistently working to make those alignments and work really hard sort of on the back end, developing our programs and assessing our programs so that it's all, so that we can go in with confidence and know that when we've worked with a teacher, we've gotten this particular feedback, or from this school, we got this feedback that tells us that this is actually working and that we want to, and they want us back. So those are the best thing that we can say to anyone is that this teacher asked us to come back, or this school wants us back. They don't have the resources for it, but they want us back. And so those are the kind of stories that we tell to anyone who's considering supporting us.
Tell everybody where they can find more information about young audiences.
Sure. Our website is yanjep.org. And we have, you know, a couple of programs that are offshoots of our organization. We have a strong partnership with the Arts Council of New Jersey, and you can find our co-sponsor projects through our website as well. We're also on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. I don't do as much social media, so that's like, but you can find all the links on our website.
I know I run all of those things for 2 organizations. It's a full-time job. It's so much fun. But tell us what would you say since the time, how long have you been at Young Audiences?
In this role, I've been here 7 years. I was 10 years on the program staff, so 17 years total.
Incredible. If you had to choose something, now this will be probably a hard question, but if you had to choose, what would you say your greatest success would be there so far in 17 years?
I would say I'd have to pick 2. Most recently, in the role that I have now, the greatest success is that we began a DEIA initiative in 2017. And working really closely with consultants, Yancey Consulting, to start us on a path and to incorporate equity into all of our organizational practices, into our programming, into our every way the board works, into our recruitment, everything. And it's at a point now where we have a director of that initiative at the organization. And we have a board committee around that work. We are never like letting our foot off the gas on it. And my greatest, like, why I would name that is that I know that if I were to step away, if any single person were to step away, it would keep going. And so it no longer is just the passion of a few people. It's really embraced by the whole organization. And we call that initiative Arts United. And we are transparent about all that work. We have a timeline on our website, all of our values on our website, so you can kind of see what work we have done over the years. And for me, you know, the impetus for that was understanding the experience students would have. So we knew we had some problems and we wanted to fix them. And we went from sort of problem solving to new program creation, and all kinds of other initiatives that have really taken us to the next level. So that's something I'm really proud of. The other one is our early childhood program, which, obviously was one of the big reasons I got into this work. And when I was on the program staff, that program really grew, and it still is an initiative of ours today. And working with those early childhood teachers who are just absolute magicians that do everything, and working with young children and helping these early childhood teachers embrace the arts for these students who are so young is still a huge point of pride for me, because my heart will always be with 3 and 4 year olds.
Best age ever. I swore that even my own children, best age ever. I loved 3 and 4 because they tell you where it's at, no fear. And they're right that, right? They just say the darndest things. There's a whole show on that. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
What is the role of the arts in creating change, changing minds, building empathy and understanding?
So we have seen such a huge impact from some of our newer programs that we've created over the past several years. I think the arts can really break down barriers of understanding between people. We all come with our biases. Children do, teachers do, everybody, all humans, we come with our biases because we're programmed by our environment as we're growing up. And we can act on those biases completely, unconsciously, not even knowing we're doing it. And on top of that, there's also actual bullying and real harm that is done to people who may not be like everybody else, air quotes, because that's not necessarily true. Underneath it, we're all like each other. But what we've been able to do with some of our programs, and what we've been really inspired by seeing other folks do, is using the arts as a tool to uncover and talk about culture, talk about traditions, talk about the human beings behind the culture and the traditions, and also just really really talking straightforwardly about bullying and bias, and helping students to open up their minds and their hearts to other people who are not like themselves. So, we have a program called United We Create, which is designed to build connections between Muslim and non-Muslim people. We looked at research, and the bullying of Muslim students is through the roof, sometimes by teachers and by other students. It's documented. So we created a program where we have Muslim artists who are bringing in art forms from Muslim cultures. It's not religious education. It's about the art forms and the artistry. But the artists will talk about themselves as Muslim. This is how I live my life, and these are the art forms that I experience, and this is how and engage with students in these art forms, and really sort of demystify what can feel very just unknown. And we saw in some of the early assessments that we did that students' empathy grew, that they scored higher on their desire to be friendly to people who are not like themselves. And same with teachers, where teachers had more ability to think about how to incorporate, like for someone who's Christian or Jewish, you go into a school and your culture, your religion is recognized. There's Christmas trees, there's, it's not like there's religious education in public school, but everybody knows what Christmas is because we talk about it all the time, and
Right.
We talk about the holidays, we really mean, it's usually means Christmas and Hanukkah. So that's not the same for every other religion and every other culture. So what was found was that teachers were also more able to think about how to just have conversations in the classroom, like, tell us about what you're doing for this holiday or that holiday. Tell us about your feasts that you're having, during Ramadan. Like, just bring it into the conversation, so the children are not sort of othered and kept invisible. So those were pieces that we feel really good about. We know that we're not the only ones doing this kind of work, and that for students to be able to be seen and heard and recognized in their school, is those are the environments that we all want for students.
That is very, very true. And we're in a very interesting part of our lives right now with trying to incorporate and make sure that everybody feels included, which should have been done from the very beginning. How we got here, that's a whole other story. But definitely, I love that. United We Create. I think that's such a great name. So, kudos to you and the organization for all you're doing to make a difference. Is there anything else in this 50th year that you want the audience to hear about young audiences?
I would just say, I know you have an audience that is regional, local, regional, international. So I would just say to everybody, to look for the ways that you can support the arts in your community, in your school. Think about this when you're thinking about who is coming into office for your school board or for your, any other way that you can think about the kind of communities and the kind of cultures that we all want to experience, to think about making those choices and bringing the arts and arts education into your decision making. Because it does make a difference who's leading the school, who's leading the school district, who's leading the classroom, who all of these things. And every citizen has choices around this. And we can all take the opportunity of the choices we have to support the arts in lots of different ways.
Is there an upcoming event or what events do you have during the year that people can look into?
We have our gala most of our programs are in schools, so we cannot really invite the public to them.
Right.
But if somebody does want to come visit a program, they can get in touch with me and we can arrange that. I just can't tell you when they're going to be at XYZ school.
Right.
But our major fundraiser is, I'm looking at my calendar because I don't want to get the date wrong, is April 29th, 2023. And we do, our fundraiser is a dance competition. So we have celebrity dancers from the community who train to dance and who perform, and they help us fundraise by getting votes, and all of the folks who vote are contributing. The votes they pay for each vote, so that is a fundraiser, and then they compete, and the winner gets like the tackiest disco ball you've ever seen on the planet. It's amazing. And most of the winners that we're in touch with the winners of previous Dazzles, and they cherish that disco ball. It is like a prized possession on their mantle, in their living room, whatever. And so it's a really fun evening because these folks really put themselves out there in this amazing way and stretch themselves literally and figuratively. And we raise money to do our programming in schools. So that's April 29th in Princeton, and we're starting to put all the pieces together for that right now, and more news to come in the coming months.
One of my prior guests, Michelle Sakurka, she was part of, and it was part of, it's called Dazzle, right?
Right, Dazzle.
And it was incredible to see her. I got to see her via video, and she did such an amazing job. But they're putting themselves really out there. These are not dancers, and that's not their background. They're celebrities from the community, just so everybody knows, because of who they are and the work that they're doing, right? And then they're going to work with professional dance teachers that are really getting them out of their comfort zone. So it's such a heartwarming thing to see them do this. And so I definitely encourage people to go take a look at others. I think there's videos and things that people can look at from past events.
Yes. Yeah. We have all of our past dancers. Michelle was just unbelievably amazing. And they all are. They really all are. And so yes, you can find all of that on our website too.
Awesome. Anything else, Michelle, that you want to share? And please also share the website one more time.
Website yanjep.org. And nothing else to share. This has been so wonderful, Jody. Thank you.
You're welcome. Congratulations, 50 years. That's just amazing. And the fact that you've been there 17 years. Thank you for being such an advocate for the arts in general, and the work that you do from one arts person to another who is just trying to showcase to the rest of the world how important the arts is to the communities that it serves. So appreciate that, Michelle.
Thank you.
I'm going to say, oh, you're welcome. I'm going to say what I say at the end of every single podcast. Today is the day You cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. So what steps, small or large, are you taking today to get yourself closer to your goals? Have a great week, everyone. And thanks again to Michele Russo. Bye, Michele.
Bye-bye. Thank you.